What's up, Ravens fans? It's time to hear from you guys on our Ravens mailbag segment. And as you'd expect, after a tough loss to the Patriots on Monday Night Football, there are lots of questions. So let's jump right into them. The first question deals with a hot topic right now, and that's the secondary, particularly after the injury to cornerback Jimmy Smith. Dan Woodall wants to know if Jimmy's season is finished, do you think that this defense can still keep up with the better offenses in the league?
Well, it's obviously going to be a whole lot harder. I mean, Jimmy Smith is the centerpiece in this defense, the top cornerback for the Ravens. So essentially, I think the question here is, can the Ravens beat the Steelers and Antonio Brown, Ben Roethlisberger, and possibly Andy Dalton and A.J. Green if he comes back for the Bengals in Week 17? Can they beat those offenses without Jimmy Smith? I think they can. But I would expect those offenses to have more yards. But let's not forget, it's more than just Jimmy Smith for this defense. Eric Weddle's made a big difference. Dean Pease, who we just wrote about last week, has made a big difference. There's a lot of layers to why this defense is playing well. You can't just say it's all Jimmy Smith, even though he is a big component. So I think the defense can survive, but it will be more difficult.
Yeah, I've been having this conversation with a lot of people even before the injury to Jimmy in terms of who's the one guy you can't afford to lose, who's the most valuable player on this team. And I think it might be Jimmy. You can make a case for some other guys, but I think it might be Jimmy. And then I think just take it a step further. Can they beat the Patriots if they make the playoffs? Can they beat the Raiders without Jimmy Smith if they make the playoffs? You know, obviously they'll cross that bridge if they get there.
Well, the Ravens had a decent amount of success in the second half against the Patriots after Jimmy Smith was out. Sharice Wright actually played pretty well.
I thought Sharice played pretty well. Now, they did have a big touchdown. That wasn't against Jimmy's guy.
Exactly. That wasn't Sharice's fault.
That was a 79-yard touchdown when he was out of the game, kind of similar to what happened in that Giants game, like you always like to point out. So, all right, let's jump to the next question today. This question is from XMattyIce53, and he wants to know, why have we gone away from establishing the run to set up the play action, and why so many checkdowns? We didn't even test the secondary. Well, there's a lot of talk about this whole run-pass imbalance thing, and play action wasn't really even an option last week because the Ravens didn't try to run the ball at all. I think what it goes back to is it matters whether or not it works. Against the Dolphins, Joe Flacco had his best game of the season, and there was no balance. There was no setting up the play action. It was just throw pretty much every single down, and it worked, so nobody was complaining. That being said, I would have liked to see them mix in some more runs early in that game. You saw what happened later in that second half when they had the chance to run the ball with Kenneth Dixon. It worked decently.
Yes.
And I think
it wasn't that they were running against a brick wall and had to go to the pass. The run game just never had a chance to get its feet.
Yeah, exactly. So I think that they might try to maybe establish the run a little bit more than they have these last 2 weeks. But like I always say, it matters whether or not it's successful. If it's successful and you throw the ball 100% of the time, then no one complains about it.
Our last question comes from Kyle Morris, and Kyle asks, what would you change to get the Ravens to win out and get that playoff spot? We all know Mink needs that victory cake.
That is true.
Absolutely right. That's really a huge loss is the victory cake. What I would change, I think, is with this offense. I think the short passing game needs to click. I think that's the big difference that we saw between the Miami game and the Patriots game. Against Miami, you hit a lot of those crossing routes. A lot of that short stuff was really kind of clicking. Against the Patriots, there were misfires early in the game. There were drops, different things like that kind of short-circuited that. You need to get that stuff right. If your offense isn't going to attack down the field, it needs to do the short stuff well to set up some of that stuff. So if I could change one thing, it would be to make the offense more consistent, more efficient with that passing game.
And I think the big thing you pointed out is that those crossing routes.
Yeah.
Because that's what was going so well against Miami. It wasn't the dump-offs to the running backs like we saw against the Patriots. It was kind of a totally different schematic game plan.
Yeah.
So, all right, that does it for us in this week's Ravens Mailbag. But as always, thanks for watching. Send in your questions every single week on social media. Have a great day, everyone.